Hey guys, I enjoy your podcast. A lot of different topics. I did want to see if I could prompt you guys to have a little bit of conversation about lizard people. I know there's a lot of different descriptions of that. Don't really know much about it. I did have one occurrence that I saw the firsthand, not seeing a lizard person, but somebody describing themselves of that, and it ended tragically.
I think this is an area too where when it comes to YouTube and sort of like what's depicted there, it's almost a pejorative. You talk about like, oh, those lizard people, those reptilians are taking over and that sort of stuff. Okay. Um I kind of take all that with a grain of salt and then some. There is a real tangible reality to people under the influence of demonic, under the influence of demons. I think that's something that we sort of have kind of put to the wayside, and we usually have thought that stuff is reserved for missionaries over somewhere in another country. But now, as things are working their way over, and as we are free fall into neo paganism and the occult and everything else has taken this huge resurgence, people are inherently. I don't think atheism is really the route people will go. There's just too much of a spiritual vacuum that people are into, and that is basic. And so now we're in a situation where we're starting to see things and observe things that typically we're not used to seeing. And I think as Christians, we tend to, especially, we'll look a lot of times through the lens of just some sort of charlatan or huckster who's doing a parlor trick. But the reality is, Scripture does talk about an unseen realm. So there's an area where we do have to look at it and understand that there are real principalities and power. There is a prince and power of the air who has fallen angels that are there to do his bidding as much as God allows it. But ultimately, the unseen realm was created by Christ and for Christ. All things were created both visible and invisible. So, my take, I don't really have a truly formulated opinion on lizard people per se, but what I do want to say is the situation you talked about is extremely serious, and we do need to make sure that we are taking into account the real reality of like a lot of demonic activity that's really going behind the scenes. Some of it, honestly, when you look at even like the music industry and some of the artistry and the symbolism, a lot of that, it's almost to an extent they're trying to troll you, I think. They're trying to get a reaction out of you. So I do think, however, there still is a spirit behind a lot of those things, and it's something we need to be wary of. So in this case, with this interaction, it's entirely possible, given what happened with something that's evil, with something that's against God's created order. So I do see the possibility of it being something and being demonic, and that shouldn't surprise us ultimately, because whether or not someone had some weird shape shifting eyes and those sorts of things, that's not my foundation. My foundation is Scripture, and that should be something to consider. What are your thoughts, Andrew, as we wrap up here?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's new age beliefs of like the city of Atlantis, and maybe there's possible like type reptilian like people there. Regardless, where this information typically comes from is some form of occult practice or ritual where someone's getting in contact with some form of entity and getting information. So just because someone says, "Well, I am X thousands of years old and I've got this lizard stuff," doesn't mean what they're saying is actually true. It doesn't mean what the demons are telling you is actually true as well. The demonic like to lie and they like to deceive. And of course, they're going to want this woman, to pursue something other than Christ. And if that's her propensity to fall into that area of belief, then that's what she believes. And yeah, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry that that happened. And I couldn't tell you one thing or the other specifically what happened to that young man. But I pray that when he was out in Utah and he got to be with another family member, that he heard the gospel before all of this happened. So my heart breaks for your family in that sense, but there will be cosmic justice. Absolutely. You will know in the end of all things.